Langley just hit Traoré with another public accusation. But Traoré is not backing down. He has warned him once.
If he was sent to create a problem in Burkina, as they are used to doing, well, we'll get ready. We'll be waiting for them.
Now he is warning him again, but this time it is louder, sharper, and more personal. Why does Langley keep coming after Traoré? Is this just a personal clash, or is there something much bigger going on behind the scenes? Langley pushed too far, and now Traoré is pushing back. This is more than drama. It is about reputation, power, and a final move that could end it all. Now, it is only a matter of time before it explodes. On April 3, 2025, General Langley spoke to the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee. He made a bold accusation, saying Traoré was using Burkina Faso's massive gold reserves, worth about $4 billion, to keep his military strong instead of spending on things like education or healthcare for the people. Langley said this was making it harder to fight terrorism, which he called a major global threat centered in the Sahel. He pointed out that attacks by groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda have gone up in recent years, with these groups getting stronger by finding new fighters and hiding spots. Traoré replied him that the gold was for Burkina Faso and there was no reason why a U.S. general was talking about it. He also questioned why a black American general like Langley would be used to attack an African leader fighting for true independence.
Not because he's a general or because he's American or anything like that, but because he's black. And it really hurts to see a black man being used to fight against another black man. And this didn't start just now. It has to stop.
This was supposed to be the end of the clash until something shocking happened recently. On May 28, 2025, Langley was in Nairobi, Kenya for the African Chiefs of Defense Conference, a big meeting where military leaders from across Africa talk about working together on security. This event is organized by AFRICOM every year, and it was hosted in Kenya this year. During the conference, Langley sat down with Kenya's Citizen TV and was asked about his comments about Traoré. Instead of apologizing like everyone told him to, this is what he said.
On autonomy, you are on African soil, not for the first time, but this would be a good moment to ask about one of the countries that has taken its own autonomy, and that's Burkina Faso. Your remarks recently at the Senate seem to suggest that he's diverting, General Traoré, is diverting its 4 billion gold reserves to sustain his military rule rather than for public welfare. These remarks sparked widespread condemnation across the continent. What did you mean by that statement?
Let me speak to Burkina Faso's sovereignty. They maintain their sovereignty. They make their decisions how they use their resources. They make their decisions who their resources go to for military support. That's their sovereign right. But my cautionary tale was just from a military perspective. That was a Senate Armed Services Committee asking me a direct question. Burkina Faso, a lot of great things going on to progress them forward, okay? But then when you look at the military part of it, knowing that that's the epicenter of global terrorism, it was my time to illuminate that this is probably their weakest point, and there needs to be sufficient resources going towards for the whole fight of terrorism in that country, period. They make their decisions though. That's their sovereignty, their sovereign right to make their decisions, what is appropriate, what's not. But I wanted to illuminate that is going in the wrong direction now. ISIS is getting stronger. JNIM is getting stronger. Al-Qaeda in the lands of the Maghreb is getting stronger in that country.
Langley did not back off. Even with all the pushback, he said he stands by his view. He warned that terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso have gotten worse, with groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda taking advantage to get money, recruit people, and find safe places to operate. He also said this is not just a problem for Burkina Faso. It could affect the U.S. too, because these groups are connected across Africa. from the east to the west.
You stand by that statement? Because there's been
That's
pressure
what-
on you to walk those statements back.
That's my statement. That's my assessment. That is getting worse. More needs to be done for not just local, but whole of country, because of these violent extremist organizations are seeking revenue, they're seeking resources, they're seeking recruiting from the Burkinabe people, and they're seeking refuge within their country. That threatens their sovereignty.
And that threatens America's interest?
Say again?
Does that then threaten America's interests?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Because especially ISIS, and of course in East Africa is inextricably linked all the way to ISIS West Africa, ISIS Sahel, and there's going to be probably a move afoot for them to move and seek refuge within the line. So we have shared objectives, and we offer to work together with the Burkina government and border countries. Mali, Niger, coastal West Africa countries, collective, because here's what these organizations do. Here's what these terrorist organizations do. They seek refuge in the seams or the borders of these countries and lets them thrive and grow, and lets them recruit, gain resources to carry on their illicit and nefarious activities against the populations of those people.
Although because of the backlash, AFRICOM's General Langley tried to ease up on Ibrahim Traore, saying there are lots of good things happening in Burkina Faso on Kenyan TV. Langley tried to choose his words carefully. He said Burkina Faso can make its own choices, but he thinks they are not doing enough to fight terrorism. What he didn't expect was what happened next. The reaction was fast and fierce. Not everyone thought Langley was backing down. They pointed out that in the same interview, he doubled down, saying terrorism in Burkina Faso is getting worse and more needs to be done, so some see his acknowledgement of Burkina Faso's progress as a weak attempt to calm things down without really changing his stance. A lot of people took his words in the interview as a direct attack at Traoré's leadership. People across Africa, from leaders to regular citizens, slammed Langley's comments, saying they disrespect Burkina Faso's right to decide for itself. They feel like Langley is sticking his nose in Burkina Faso's business, which has made many Africans angry. They see it as the US acting like it knows better than African countries on how to handle their own issues. Some people also accused him of trying to hide AFRICOM's own struggles. Since the US and France have been in the Sahel for years, but have not stopped terrorism, they have seen Western countries pouring in billions of dollars for things like France's Operation Barkhane and US drone strikes, yet terrorism has gotten worse. Langley himself dropped a shocking stat.
I put this statistic out there. You know, in 2007, the global percentage of terrorism on the African continent was 2%. 2024, it's like 43%. It migrated down. That ideology migrated down, and some fighters did come through the Maghreb. Just a number of things, the Arab Spring, and the Libya downfall, but that narrative came down into the Sahel.
It is a huge increase, and many Africans are saying that it proves that the Western plans are not working. They believe that Langley's remarks are a way to push the public opinion against Burkina Faso for teaming up with Russia instead of the US, but the reverse has been the case. This has made things super tense, and the Sahel countries have continued to move away from Western partnerships. But that is not all. Traoré is not one to let criticism from the West slide. When he heard about Langley's new comments, he did not waste time in giving a reply. He used the moment to drop a powerful statement about the terrorism in the Sahel. He said that the terrorism affecting the Sahel region today came from imperialism and that his government is currently fighting against it. He claimed that the US does not have the morals to teach him the right thing to do.
Dans la région, comme vous savez, la situation sécuritaire, en tout cas, nous essayons d'évoluer sur les champs de bataille. Ça, c'est la première des choses, parce qu'il y a plusieurs facteurs qui rentrent en ligne de compte. Sur le champ de bataille, il y a de l'évolution. Si on prend de 2023 aujourd'hui, nous avons pu récupérer beaucoup de zones que nous avons pu pacifier. N'empêche que l'ennemi se renforce aussi. Il y a beaucoup de combattants étrangers qui rejoignent le rang des terroristes.
Est-ce que vous pouvez préciser, vous parlez de quoi?
Oui, les terroristes, ils sont renforcés par beaucoup de combattants étrangers qui viennent d'ailleurs, qui ne sont pas en fait, quand je prends le cas du Burkina, il y a beaucoup de criminels qui sont au Burkina mais qui ne sont pas burkinabés. Il y a aussi des formateurs qui viennent de beaucoup de pays pour les apprendre beaucoup de techniques. Mais ce n'est pas du terrorisme en fait, c'est de l'impérialisme. L'objectif pour eux, c'est de nous maintenir dans une guerre permanente, qu'on ne puisse pas se développer et continuer à piller nos richesses. Aujourd'hui, les terroristes utilisent des drones pour faire le combat et tout. Donc, ce sont des professionnels venus donc, de certains pays qui viennent les apprendre tout ça. Tout ça, c'est pour continuer à nous maintenir dans une situation d'insécurité. Mais nous prenons la mesure de la chose, nous nous adaptons à chaque fois à leur mode d'action et nous continuerons le combat jusqu'à récupérer l'entièreté du Sahel.
Y a-t-il des pays concrets qui financent ces combattants?
Tous les pays impérialistes financent ces combattants. Voilà, ils sont nombreux. On ne peut pas les citer voilà, individuellement. Il y en a qui sont même cachés, qu'on ne peut pas imaginer. Mais ils sont nombreux.
Traore's point is that the terrorism in the Sahel is not just a local problem, it is caused by the foreign influences trying to control the region. He claimed that these foreign influences have been stirring up trouble to be able to have access to their resources like gold. But by working with Russia, Traore is making it clear he wants to make his own decisions, free from what he calls mental colonialism, where the Western powers try to control how Africans think and act. This clash between Traore and Langley is not just about two military leaders fighting. It is about what Africa wants to be. It is a fight between controlling Africa's future and keeping people safe. The US through AFRICOM says it is in Africa to help African countries defeat terrorism by training their soldiers and sharing knowledge. Langley talked about this in his Citizen TV interview, saying, AFRICOM wants African leaders to take the lead while the US supports them. He called it a campaign of learning where he listens to African leaders to figure out what they need.
We don't prescript anything in AFRICOM. When I go and I call it a campaign of learning. And people thought, yeah, he's doing a campaign of learning in his first year of AFRICOM. No, I've been doing a campaign of learning throughout. When I sit down with MODs, chiefs of defense or presidents, I learn from them. I learn from them. They tell me what their approach is to terrorism. And I figure out, and they tell me how AFRICOM can help.
All right, so
However, Traore and other Sahel countries' leaders think real safety comes from running their own countries independently, not hosting foreign troops. That is why they sent French and US forces packing and started working with Russia. Russia offers guns, training, and even fighters, like the Wagner Group, without telling these countries how to run their country. Traore's meeting with Putin in Moscow was a loud message. He is open to partners who respect his country's choices, even if those partnerships come with their own issues. Nevertheless, Langley has a point about the terrorism. Attacks in the Sahel have increased, with groups like Jenim and ISIS taking advantage of weak regions and open borders. Langley said these groups hide in the spaces between countries, picking up new fighters and cash to keep going. He also warned that terrorism in one part of Africa is linked to others, which could make the problem spread. This leaves a big question. Can Burkina Faso handle terrorism without Western help? There is no answer to that now. But one thing is clear. Traore does not want their help, and he is right to do so. Traore has launched projects to build schools and repair roads in high-risk areas, but rising attacks prove that military action alone is not enough. Langley's remarks, even if they annoy Africans, point to a key problem. Burkina Faso must balance security with real support for its people to truly fight terrorism. What happens from here? The Nairobi conference was supposed to bring countries together, but Langley's comments have strained things between the US and Africa. Traoré's move to Russia and rejection of Western point to a big shift in the Sahel, not just in fighting terrorism, but in who is trusted. The region is a hot spot for competition, with the US, Russia, and China all wanting influence because of its resources and location. Although Langley says AFRICOM's here to help and not boss anyone around, he said AFRICOM is about training and ideas, not sending American troops. But Traoré and other Africans think this still feels like the US trying to call the shots. They want control over not just their resources, but how their story is told. Both men face a common enemy, terrorism, but they can't seem to agree on the cure. While the Sahel's bold push for true independence is inspiring, navigating global partnerships is complex. Russia and China offer tempting alternatives to the West, but let's be clear, they are not in it for free. So, what is the way forward? Finding a middle ground is no easy task. Terrorist groups like ISIS and Jimmium thrive in places where poverty and instability rule, and no single nation can tackle that alone. Burkina Faso's gold reserves might be its greatest weapon, not just for defense, but for building a future with schools, hospitals, and real hope. Meanwhile, Langley is working to repair a broken relationship. He has acknowledged Burkina Faso's progress, but by standing firm on his Senate remarks, he has also kept the tension burning. Now the US faces a tough choice: become a genuine partner or stay stuck as a sideline critic. As for Traoré, his challenge is even greater. He must prove that he can uplift his people and push back against foreign pressure. Russia might strengthen its military, but that alliance could cause issues with neighboring countries still cautious of Moscow's reach. The Sahel is at a crossroad. Will Traoré's bold moves bring real freedom, or will they make things harder for the region? Can the US become a trusted friend to Africa, or will the lack of trust keep them apart? One thing is certain: young Africans want a future free from both terrorism and Western influence. Langley said African unity is real and strong, but it will take teamwork and smart moves to make it last. This story is far from over. It has just started, and how it ends could change Africa's future. What do you think? Do you agree with Traoré's view that terrorism is tied to imperialism, or Langley's call for a joint fight? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss our next video. You can also check out our video on the truth behind Ivory Coast's secret coup. Africa's voice is getting louder. Stay with us so you don't miss what's next.